Hey, what's going on, AP guys? Chapters 20 and 21 for you today. Just a quick note, it is going to be kind of short simply because a lot of the battles and generals and a lot of Civil War people, AP does not require you to know. So I'm going to keep this short and focus on the things that are most likely to appear on the AP exam. Let's get going. All right, Civil War. We're going to talk about advantages really quick for both the North and the South. Now, the North had a much larger population. With a larger population comes a larger workforce and can also come a larger military size. They also had 90% of the industrial advantage in the entire country, both north and south, was located in the north. So they had a much larger industrial advantage. We see this especially with weapons, thanks to Eli Whitney and the interchangeable parts. We have muskets and lots of guns and weapons that are going to be used. The southern advantage is they were fighting a defensive war, so they simply had to just hold on and hope that the North would give up. But they did have very good military leadership, and here are two guys, Robert E. Lee and his right-hand man, Stonewall Jackson, who was actually killed by Southern troops thinking he was a Northerner. Right, the border states, you need to know these four states. They're Missouri, Kentucky, Delaware, and Maryland. If you look here, they're the yellow states. And notice that they are located right between the blue in the north and the red, the Confederate States of America. These are very important states, and we need to figure out why that is. They had slaves. All four of these states were slave states, yet they remained loyal to and fought on behalf of the Union. So Kentucky and Missouri, they had people that were fighting the Civil War, and they fought on behalf of the North, even though they had slaves. And another reason why they're very important, they're strategically located, again, right kind of in the middle here, and they also were a source of industrialization. So there were factories, there were a lot of key stuff that if these states were to break away to the South, the war could have ended very differently. Please know those four border states, and they fought on behalf of the North. The Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln was written after the only battle you really need to know, Antietam. And this was a Union victory. It was the bloodiest day of the war, and it helped to keep Europe out of the war. France and Europe in particular were kind of going back and forth a lot throughout the beginning of the war, first half. Are we going to intervene? And if they did, they would have most likely intervened on the South. After this battle, the North demonstrates that they are very strong. Lincoln, after this battle, gets together with his cabinet, and we have Secretary of War Stanton and then Secretary of Treasury Salmon P. Chase. And then also Secretary of State William Seward here, he reads to them and they write together the Emancipation Proclamation. Now what this does is it frees slaves in the states in rebellion. Those are only the states that are part of the Confederate States of America. This does not apply to border states, and that's very important. So Missouri, Maryland, and Delaware and Kentucky, those slaves were not freed there. Why? If they did, the border states may have jumped ship and gone on fighting for the South. This strengthens the moral cause of the war, gives people in the North another reason to fight, and it also helps keep Europe from intervening on behalf of the Confederate States. Antietam really set the stage for that, but the Emancipation Proclamation kind of is that final nail in the coffin to keep them out, because so many French and British citizens were against slavery, and they would not like their governments to support a pro-slave government. So two key terms that you should be familiar with. One is contraband, and this deals with fugitive slaves, so slaves from the Confederate States of America, that sought protection behind Union lines. When the Northern troops were coming down, the slaves would run away or hide behind and seek protection from the Union soldiers. And many times they actually fought on behalf of the Union. And this name that they were given was contraband. We also have conscription, which is the forced enlistment of citizens. In other words, it is a draft. And we're going to see in 1863 New York City draft riots. This I've seen in quite a few review books, so I would be familiar with this. In this draft riot shows class tensions between the rich and the poor. Congress passed this law that said that if you were drafted and you could afford $300, you could hire somebody to be your replacement. Well, the rich have $300 and lots of money, and the poor don't. So this shows tensions between the rich and the poor. Teddy Roosevelt loved his father, who was his greatest hero in life. He said the only thing his father ever did wrong was he hired a replacement to fight in the Civil War. All right, African Americans, 180,000 of them served in the Union Army. 38,000 of them lost their lives. If you're looking for a good movie about African Americans in the Civil War, see Glory, very popular, great cast, just a very good movie. They were also encouraged to join by Frederick Douglass, the former slave, and even if they were equal rank, they were paid less than whites. Lincoln in the Civil War Couple things you need to know about Lincoln. He suspended something called habeas corpus, and that means that you are held in jail without a trial. That is a violation of the Bill of Rights. And this is something that, if it's to be suspended, only Congress can do. Lincoln did this in D.C. and the surrounding areas without the approval of Congress. He also increased the size of the military, again, something only Congress can do, and he shut down newspapers in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas that were critical of him in the war effort. And this is a violation of the First Amendment. So Lincoln definitely violated natural rights or rights that citizens had. Thing to keep in mind, we especially see this for the first time in the Civil War, but we'll see it in World War II. We'll see it after World War I. We'll see it after 9/11. In times of crisis, personal liberties decrease and the power of the government increases. If there is a crisis, a war, chances are your liberties are going to go down and the power of the government, particularly the federal government, is going to increase. Last thing we'll talk about here, and we'll actually talk about these terms in coming review videos, but they are passed during the Civil War. We have the national banking system. Salmon P. Chase, who was Lincoln's Treasury Secretary, and he becomes the sixth Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Lincoln appoints him after Roger B. Taney dies, and he is from none other than Cincinnati. And he helped establish the national banking system, and it establishes a uniform national currency. And for his honor, for a limited time, he was on the $10,000 bill. This is not in circulation. It's only for banks, I guess. A very popular act was called the Homestead Act. It granted 160 acres to people at a very low price to move out west and encouraged the settlement of land out west. We're going to see this play a big role with railroads. Tariffs increased during this time. Lincoln was a Republican. Well, you need to know Republicans control Congress at this time. You need to know that. But more importantly, Republicans want to raise tariffs. Republicans raise. Republicans raise. Herbert Hoover was a Republican in the 1920s. What do you think he wanted to do to tariffs? He wanted to raise them. Democrats don't want to raise tariffs. They want tariffs to go down. Democrats down. Democrats down. Grover Cleveland from Buffalo, he was a Democrat. What do you think he wanted to do to tariffs? Yes, he wanted them to go down. William McKinley shot in Buffalo. He was a Republican. What did he want to do to tariffs? Raise them. Republicans raise. Know that it will be a common theme going forward from the Civil War. We also have the Morrill Land Grant, gave public lands to states for the purpose of training students in colleges, and particularly in agriculture and the mechanical arts. That's it for 20 and 21. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Email me if you have a suggestion for a video. Let me know as well. Have a good day, guys.